It's been Halton County's hidden jewel for over 50 years. We're on the road with Ralph as we experience Halton's regional radial railway right here in Milton. The Halton County Radial Railway began in 1954 with this 1910 version of a Toronto streetcar. Ian Campbell is the operation manager of this great facility, and tell us a bit more, Ian, about its beginning.
You're right, Ralph. It did start in 1954 with a group of 8 individuals. Toronto was getting rid of their historic streetcar fleet at the time, and this group didn't want to see this particular car destroyed. They wrote Toronto a letter and asked if they could have the car to preserve it. Toronto agreed. Now where do you put a big streetcar? Won't fit in your parents' backyard. They went searching. They actually found an old abandoned electric railway that used to run between Toronto and Guelph. There was 4 acres of that property left out here in Nassagaweya. They were able to buy it for the back taxes. That's why we ended up out here in Halton.
Called Halton County then, of course. We're all part of the region now, and this is in the town of Milton.
Yes. And
Milton, I guess, to quite an extent, has offered continuous support one way or another for this facility.
They have. Most recently through the Milton Community Fund, we've been able to apply for various grants throughout the years, and Milton has actually been instrumental in a lot of the stuff we've been able to do around here lately.
Can you tell us a little bit about this 1910 vintage car, as I referred to it, and you know, what it offers, what it has, and looks pretty sharp to me, but I guess you know the history about it.
Yeah, as you said, it was built in 1910. It actually ran in Toronto up until 1951. At that time, most of these cars were built out of wood. Most of the cars then were now becoming built out of steel. This car became obsolete at that point.
Do you happen to remember what it cost, what the ticket fare was to ride on this car per person? Would it be 25 cents?
No, actually it was almost more like 5 cents.
5 cents
Yep.
for an adult?
Yeah, if you picture it, even in today's times, a transit fare would be about the cost of a good loaf of bread.
Ian, thanks very much for bringing us together to tour this wonderful place again, as I referred to it. And now we're going to have a look at one of the trains from the London Port Stanley Railway. We're on an old London Port Stanley streetcar, I guess, with Ian at the controls, and also at the back of the vehicle we've got members of the 60th Oshawa Cub Pack, and they're enjoying this trip just as much as we are, Ian. And take us through what we're doing here as we're driving down this lengthy piece of historical railway bed track. It was originally here from many years ago.
Yeah, Ralph, we're just entering on to what was the original main line when the museum started 50 years ago. This was part of the original 4 acres we talked about earlier. We've now expanded to almost 38 acres, and the property resembles a dog bone. It's wide at both ends, and it's still the original 66 feet down the main line here.
But the track, the track, and not the actual track itself, but I believe the bed that the track is on was part of a railway system that ran from Toronto to Guelph.
Yeah, in 1917, the Toronto Suburban Railway was created, and it ran from Toronto all the way through to Guelph. It was shut down in 1931 because CN had bought the line and they owned a steam railway 4 miles up the road. They didn't need both of them. So in 1933, this was all ripped up. All the poles were gone, the overhead was gone, the track was gone. So when the museum started in '54, they had to relay every stick of track by hand.
You know, I can see why this is known as Halton's hidden jewel of over 50 years, or some expression like that you people use.
We do tend to be the greatest kept secret in the neighborhood.
Well, I can see why. How long is this this trip that we've been on in this particular car?
This particular
in length of kilometers.
This particular car runs about 1.5 kilometers. The entire run for the smaller cars is 3 kilometers. This car is actually too big to do the complete run.
So what we did was we went up and then we're backing down. We have controls at both ends.
That's right. This car can be controlled from both ends, so it kind of works out rather well. We don't have to back it up. But this car is just physically too big to go up around the loops, which are just made for streetcars.
We're not traveling very fast, are we, Ian?
We do about 20 miles an hour on the main line. Two reasons. One, we don't want to make the ride too short for the people, and the other one is most of these cars are 80 and 90 years old. We really want to try and baby them as much as we can and make them last as long as we can.
Does this operate through the winter months? I guess not. You'd have too much snow in here.
Yeah, we are. The members, the volunteers, are actually here year-round working on the cars, but we're only open to the public from May to October.
Ian, thank you very much for this great little tour. And now we're going to go back to the station, I guess, and have a look at the model of the Toronto Railway Company, one that was probably built back in 1893. Have I got those dates right?
That's right. That one was built in 1893, and this one was built in 1915.
So we're going to see the 1893 one next. Ian, we're on the Toronto Railway Company 1893 model open bench, you called it. This thing looks like a beautiful antique.
It is. It's really been well taken care of over the years. The car was originally built in 1893. This type of car ran in Toronto in the summertime only. For obvious reasons, it's wide open. This type of car was banned in 1915 for two reasons. One, it actually stops with a mechanical brake. There's no air pressure to stop the car. And two, it has running boards on the side of the car so people could hop off and hop on at their will.
How did you acquire this? This is a piece of work, a piece of art.
This was actually given to us by the TTC in 1968. They were still interested in preserving the cars, and they knew we could take care of it properly up here. This was the first car when the museum actually got power to the museum to operate under its own electrical power to operate.
So visitors to the museum come here and they can always have a ride on this particular vehicle as well as the others?
Yeah, as long as it's a nice sunny day, this car is out pretty much every day.
If it's pouring rain, you wouldn't want to be sitting here in this open bench vehicle.
That's true. It would get a little wet.
Do you ever talk about a value on a thing like this? Is there a value? Do you know a value?
What kind of value? What kind of value do you put on your best friend or your wife or something like that? It's really kind of hard to pick a dollar value. If we had to replace it, it would probably be over $1 million. But you've lost the history that it would have had in the first place.
Just wanted to say that I guess you're still constantly looking for new artifacts, new vehicles. Absolutely. From wherever.
Yeah. And once in a while you do find an artifact. I think most of them are pretty much exhausted now. You get the odd little gem here and there, and visitors actually will bring us things that they have found that they think is valuable, and go from there.
Well, we're just about at the end of the line on this one. I hear the bell ringing there, Ian, so maybe that was the car that met us, but we're going now to disembark from this and have a look at the Toronto Civic Railway. We're standing beside a Toronto Civic Railway 1915 streetcar model, I think, and we're with Bob Johnson. Bob, they tell me, has lived the history of this museum. He's ridden the cars, he's worked on them, and now he's classified as one of their prominent restorers. I guess that's the right word, Bob.
But the proper word.
You've done it all and put them all back together. And tell us a little bit about this vehicle, if you can remember, and I'm sure you can, and some of the work you've done on this and the other vehicles as well.
Well, this came to us not as a passenger car, it came to us as a work car. And it was the second car that was bought for the museum. And it used to, the TTC didn't like it, of course, because it's not their type of car. It was too rough, it was bouncy. So they made it into what they called a snow scraper. Well, we bought it and took all the snow scraping equipment off, and we've slowly turned it back into a passenger car. I was the original half of the restoring team.
What type of restoration work do you do?
Well,
I heard you talk about windows.
Okay, I've done about probably 500 and some odd windows in this outfit. Like, I've done every window in this car, and you just wrote 8. I did every window in that car. And of course, what you got to do is rebuild them because they're usually rotten. And what they used to do a lot was they would paint the inside of a car. Well, all of these cars were originally, they were all done with the stain and the varnish. And Of course, that became very old-fashioned, and they couldn't afford to do that anymore. It was much cheaper to send a guy in with a can of paint and just slop it all up.
Now, you're not driving this one yet out on the tracks, I guess. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
This one?
Yeah.
We used to use this one a lot.
Will you get it back out and get it going again?
We could. It has a few little problems mechanically. There's a guy working on it right now, and he's done all new seats in it.
You've dedicated so many years of your life to this.
It's a passion. Yeah, you should have a passion in your life for doing something. And this is to bring back a piece of, really a Canadian history, because it's disappeared. And the idea was to bring it back to show kids what it was. Of course, that's not who enjoys it. Who enjoys it is old people and say, oh, I remember when.
And on that note, I got to tell you, that was just a lovely remark, and thank you so much for joining us in this edition of On the Road with Ralph. And now, I'm going to see if I can operate one of those hand cars, those maintenance cars. Is this what you really call being on the road with Ralph?
This type of little yellow car, for obvious reasons, was called a hand car. Workers used to use this to travel down the line to do any kind of track work down the tracks. This type of car was built at the turn of the century and was used up for about 40, 50 years. It was eventually replaced by gasoline-powered little speeders, they called them. And what you see on the tracks now today are little pickup trucks that have little railway wheels that can drop down. When we used to operate this little cart on the museum, we used to you try and pump like crazy going downhill, so you had enough momentum to try and get up the next little hill. It's bad enough going downhill, it's even worse trying to come uphill. We don't use it too much here on the property anymore, thankfully. It gets a little tiring after a while. We do leave it in the barn for the kids, though. It's a good display. They can kind of remember back when it was like for the workers to work on the tracks.
We're on what's known as a PCC, Toronto Transit Streetcar, sort of the second generation that Ian informed me about. And PCC stands for President's Conference Car. And that all came about as a result of presidents of various transit organizations throughout North America getting together and deciding that they wanted to find one car that they could all build, use together, and at the same time create more economies, by virtue of the fact them all building and buying from the same place. But more importantly than that is the fact that we've got with us on this particular edition of On the Road with Ralph, Councillor Jan Mowbray. Councillor Mowbray is a councillor in Ward 3 from the town of Milton. And it's important, Jan, that you're here to share with us in your fondness and your activity with the museum, because Milton has done a lot for this event, as have you, one of its councillors. This is actually right in your home ward. So do you want to tell us how you feel and what some of the things that the town of Milton have done so graciously?
Thank you, Ralph. The radio museum here in Milton, I think, for a lot of the local residents is a hidden secret, but I'm tremendously proud of this whole thing, but I'm especially proud to be associated with the people that do the work here, because bottom line, regardless of the funding that comes from the town, it's all the people here that are the members that provide all the work and a lot of the funding to keep this thing going. For instance, some of the funding that has come from the town in 2002 was $25,000 that came to fix a TTC TP to fix the cast iron wheels. In 2003, they paid for partial grading of the parking lot. In 2004, $40,000 toward new tracks to build to the new building that we're sitting outside here. The Trillium actually has contributed $100,000 as well. In 2006, another $40,000 toward the new archives facility. It's 2 cars, and it's amazing, the archives, the information that's in there. In 2007, another $64,000 came towards rebuilding part of the main track here. And I haven't had the opportunity to go around the whole facility, but I'm tremendously impressed with what I have seen here. I always send my friends here as well.
It's real great to have you bring everybody up to date in that, and I don't want to make your face blush, but you know, when I was here 3 weeks ago arranging what we're doing here today, I found out that the people here have got a great deal of respect for you. So I guess we can say keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And
I do support them.
And on that note, thanks you again for joining
thank
us.
you,
And
Ralph.
now we're going to leave this streetcar and we're going in to have a visit with the inside of the original old Rockwood train station. Ian, this is the old original town of Rockwood CN station that you've moved from Rockwood, I guess 3 or 4 miles away from here, to here. Tell us about all that.
Yeah, it is. In 1971, the museum was just getting ready to open to the public. We needed, obviously, a place to come to. The station became available to us, so it was actually brought down here by truck. They took the top 6 feet of the roof off, loaded it up on a truck, and 4 miles down the road, down it came. And it sits here on this site it sits on now.
Put the 6-foot piece of roof back on.
We did. It would have leaked a little bit otherwise, but
Yeah.
we put the 6 feet of roof back on, and this has actually been our main train station for the last 35
and now
years.
we're in the ticket master's office, which is sort of located in the center of the station with baggage rooms on one side and waiting rooms on the others, and all the regalia in here that it took them to run the train station.
Yeah, in these small towns, the station agent would have been not only selling your tickets, he would have talked to the train dispatchers by radio or at one point by Morse code. He would have sold you your tickets, he would have sold you your local newspapers. He really was the focal point of the towns.
But speaking of Morse code, you still have that piece of equipment here. You got the old Underwood typewriter, you got the ticket wickets, and you've got the old gooseneck phone or whatever you call it there.
Yeah, all the old artifacts that came with the station were brought along with it. Don't ask me to do the Morse code. I never did learn that other than I guess SOS perhaps. So yeah, it had the old extension phones. He could actually talk outside or talk to the train crews.
So the viewers, the patrons that come in here and want to look at the place that is welcome in here, I guess, is on a train, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. The purpose of us being out here is to have the visitors come out, experience what it was like years gone by, and kind of get a feel for what it was like to ride trains or streetcars as we run here back when, 30 or 40 years. 100 years ago.
Does this place require quite a bit of maintenance, this particular building?
Not so much, or any more than your normal house would. I mean, we redo the roof every so often, check for leaks and whatnot. The building itself is just heated by a wood stove. So if we do happen to have events here in the wintertime, we'll have to fire the stove up.
So what you're saying is if I need a place to stay over the weekend in the cold winter, I could come up here and nobody know where I was, but I'd be nice and warm?
Might want to bring a few pieces of wood along with you. That stove is not terribly efficient, but it does do the job.
Well, Ian, thank you very much for letting us right inside the station master's office, which is not normally open to the public. And now you're going to take us and show us a piece of the system from the London Street Railway. Bob, after this became the London Street Railway car, it served another very interesting use in London. Could you tell us about that first before we talk about the restoration?
Well, as they abandoned the system, these cars became available, so the park took them. They were driven down to the park, taken off their wheels and set on the ground. This car became the men's change room. And what they did was they built walls where all the seats are now. They built walls down, and each one was a separate little change room. Her sister car became the ladies' change room. We lost it. We couldn't get it. It broke apart. However,
the London Wonderland Park.
This was Wonderland Park, yes. But fortunately, when they did that to the car, they kept some things. They kept this. This was a pattern for an open seat. And of course, this is a large open car. We've done the car. It took 14 years for one couple to bring it back to this stage. And it's complete. It will run, but we don't run it because it needs a few other little finicky things to fix it up. Actually, it's our oldest car. It was 1901. So it's a good age. A centenarian? Something like that, yeah. And like I say, the one couple took 14 years. And it's as it was. This is exactly the way it would look. And can't you think of a summer night with the moon out, and this is
absolutely wonderful.
Take your lady for a ride on the open car.
And as well as being a Restorian, if that's a word. I think you're also a great historian. And now we're going to go and have a look at the simple road crossing system that signaled if there was a train coming in. Caroline Rose is in charge of marketing at the museum. And Caroline, we're right here under these flashing red lights that mean something. Crossing is dangerous. Tell us about the lights and how the kids can enjoy them.
Probably most of you have seen one of these outside, like along tracks. They're to notify you that a train is coming, and they have sound as well. We have a lot of interactive things for children to play with, like buttons to press and bells to ring and whatnot.
Throughout the place.
Yeah, it's not only in here, it's also in the station there. And this is also part of a school program that we run for children. I think it's ages to grade 4, I think it goes to. So anyway.
Show us what happens now if a
show you
child
what happens.
wants to play.
And you can hold it down too.
Hold it down.
It plays it a little longer.
That'll get their parents' attention, won't it? Yeah.
And everyone else in the building too.
Well, thanks so much, Caroline. And now we're going to have you take us to another Toronto transportation streetcar. Carolyn, we're on a much newer version of a Toronto streetcar, but you're here to talk to us about all the wonderful things that people can experience when they come to the museum, things they can do, the parties they can have, and the kids that have the fun. Tell us about all that you offer to the public.
Well, one of the #1 things we offer is the ride, as we are on right now. Because you go to a lot of museums and it's just sort of static. You just walk around and look at all the artifacts, whereas we are actually running, which is a great experience for families to have. We also offer, as we saw, interactive devices for the kids to play with and that, go up and down.
Go for the ride on here and then come back to the building.
Yeah, and do any little games that you might have or whatnot. We've accommodated for that.
I'm sure there's a bit of a cost for that, but if somebody wants to get more information, Caroline, they can phone you, I presume they can email you, and they can use the web page. And would you like to give us all that information?
Our website is hcry.org.
Say it again.
hcry.org.
Right.
And our phone number is 519-856-9802. And the email address, there's a bunch of them on the website. It depends what you're looking for, but the main one is streetcar@hcry.org.
It's beautiful traveling through this. I'm going to call it a small forest here, isn't it? And before we get to the end of the journey, have you got anything else you'd like to add, Caroline?
We've really pushed our marketing things this year and really trying to get a lot of more of awareness of what we are. And I think Jan mentioned earlier, we're sort of the hidden treasure in the location. So we'd like other people to discover us and come out.
And on that note, we've got one more trip to take, and that's on a Peter Witt streetcar. And we're going to go there now and enjoy and experience that.
Sounds good.
Kevin Brown is a conductor on this streetcar, and Kevin, that means, from what I understand, is that you're really the boss. You're in charge of everything, the operator. And why is that?
Well, the conductor, Ralph, can see a lot more on the inside, what people are doing with their arms out the window. They can look at the people running for the streetcar. They can stop the operator at any time. And most importantly, they're checking the passenger load, which is the most important concern to a conductor.
You've actually been in this business for many years. I guess you still operate or teach or instruct in the city of Toronto for TCC.
That's right.
So it must be a real comfort for you to come out here to this wonderful place and share your expertise.
Well, it's nice to have the history and enjoy the history up here, and to see how they used to do things in the past with the vintage cars of the 1800s right up to the 1950s.
In those older vintage cars, with your responsibility of being in charge, did you ever have many unpleasant experiences, or was it all pretty much passive?
It was there was a wide range of experiences on the cars in Toronto. You're going to get a wide range of questions. You're going to get difficult situations arise, ill patrons. You're going to have a lot of excited people during a Blue Jays World Series. You're going to have a lot of excited fans at hockey games, and your job is to keep a watch out for them.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing with us so much. And now, from a conductor, we're going to go and talk to the operator. Ian, you're taking us home to the Rockwood station at the end of today's journey, and it's been a wonderful experience. I think we're in a streetcar known as a Peter Whit.
We are. This is actually known as a large Peter Whit. There was 2 different types of them made. This one actually used to carry a trailer along behind it and would actually go up and down large city streets in Toronto. They were eventually replaced by what is now the subway routes.
This is a tour that you go up and down many days as an operator, and I guess you're, as an operations manager here, I guess you're pretty much in charge of the entire operation. Ian, am I right?
To a point. I mean, obviously it is a group effort, and we couldn't do it without everybody we've got here. But it really is a passion, and you really enjoy being up here, and you don't mind coming up, even though it is work. It doesn't really feel like work.
As a matter of that point that you just made about it being a group effort, are you people continuing to look for volunteers?
With a group like this, we're always begging for volunteers. You can never have enough people to do the work that gets to be done here. It's always a work in progress.
Any final comments, Ian?
Well, we just want to thank everyone for coming up here, and we hope they've enjoyed the day today. It's been an absolutely gorgeous day, and hopefully we'll look to see you out here soon.
This brings to conclusion this edition of On the Road with Ralph. And on behalf of Ian Campbell and the Halton County Radial Railway, we thank you very much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed it. So until the next time, keep active, keep involved, and have a good day. I'm Ralph Robinson.